Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are here in the Cherokee Batting Range podcast studio, getting ready to record episode number 217. We're going to talk about coaches having a punch list and making sure that they work their way through the things that they need to take care of in preparation for their season. Before we get into that topic, let's talk about our sponsors. First, the Anderson Bat Company. Everything Fast Pitch is very proud to have Anderson Bat Company as our presenting sponsor. Anderson Bat Company is using the latest and greatest bat technology to corner the market in the fast pitch world. They have the -9 Rocket Tech, the -10 Carbon, and the -11 Carbon Light. Anderson Bat Company is using this technology to put a high-performing bat in the hands of hitters that really know the difference between a good bat and a great bat. We're also working with Anderson to provide a discount for all of our listeners. Go to the Anderson Bat Company website and order your bats. Use the EFP20 discount, which is for everything fast pitch, and you'll get a 20% discount. And please take advantage of that EFP20 discount. It's a great way for you to save that additional 20%. It's about time, if you're going to get that Christmas gift in time, get it ordered right now and get it under the tree. And then also want to talk about patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. I want to thank Dalton Bragg. Dalton is our newest patron. Thank you very much for coming on board and supporting the podcast. We are very appreciative of all of the supporters that we have, all of the patrons that we have. We would love to add some more people to that list. So if you see value in what we're doing, and if you can afford to help us out a little bit, go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. So Don, the idea of a punch list, we're always talking about, you and I are both kind of around the house, do-it-yourselfers, always got something going on. And at some point in time, no matter the project, whether it's something you've done a bunch of times in the past or it's a one-time thing, you get down to that punch list of things, the last few things to finish it up. Make sure that the project is completed. And I like that idea for coaches, but the reason I want us to talk about it now is I think now's the time when we create the master list that ultimately leads to the punch list for later on. So the master list should be all the stuff that we need to do.
So, Tori, I think the idea of making a list is really critical because there are so many things that need to be covered, from defensive things to pop-up communications to relays to if this, that, the first and thirds, there's bunt defense. All those things are, if we're going to be a good team, we really need to make sure we cover them. And,
right.
And to have a list that we kind of check off and we go back to review and to revisit certain things is a lot better off of a list. I know anytime I'm doing any of those projects you're talking about at home, if I don't have my list, I'll in my head run through everything when I'm at the depot or as I'm shopping. I'll think that I've got everything. I'll get back, and because I didn't have my list,
there's that one thing
so I'm disappointed. I'm not as efficient. I'm
back in the truck, running back over to Home Depot again.
Absolutely. It takes another however long, but in the softball world, that just means that we're going to make a few mistakes that that we probably could have covered having had the list.
Just to kind of put this into perspective, once upon a time I did this all with pen and paper and highlighters and magic markers and all that kind of stuff. And then towards the end of my career, when I became just a little bit more computer savvy, I could figure out that you could make a list and use different size fonts, and you could bold and underline, and you could change color on some of the stuff. And what I ended up creating was a pretty detailed master list, the list of all the things. And at the top of the list, in much bigger print and bold and stuff to make sure that I kept reminding myself how important it was things like bunt coverages and relays and backup responsibilities and pop-up communication and some of those things that really were the most important things to make sure we were good at if we wanted to be successful as a team. And then I would work my way down the list and be a little bit smaller font, maybe a little bit smaller typeface to make it still on the list, but maybe not quite as important. Yeah. And then, a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller. And down at the bottom might be like trick plays or, something, some sort of gimmicky kind of thing that it was if we have time to ever work on it, we'll throw it in, but we're not going to worry about it. If we never do, it won't be a big deal. And then from that list, that would be sort of like my master plan to make sure that we were working on the things. And I would keep it handy because what it could remind me of and would remind me of often is even though we were really good at bunt coverages, we still needed to keep working on them all the time to make sure we stayed good at them.
Sure.
And some of the other stuff that maybe didn't seem quite so important. But so then as we would start getting closer and closer to game day, especially in the first couple of games of the year, we would take that master list and, as you said, check it off to make sure that we were working on those things on a regular basis. Now, of course, in the college world, where you get to practice a lot, we would get to cover just about everything on that big, gigantic list.
Sometimes I don't know how travel groups do it because it does take quite a long time to get through your list.
Right. What I think the point that we want to make today is the prioritizing that list and then making sure that you're keeping track of it. Because I'm going to admit something here on the airwaves. I think I've talked about this before, but once upon a time, there was a year that we were warming up for our first game of the college spring season. And it dawned on me how little we had really worked on slap defense.
Sure.
Because we didn't have any slappers on our team that year, so it's like it kind of was out of sight, out of mind.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, I'm watching the other team, and I'll notice they had like 5 slappers. Oh, man, I wish we would have worked on that a little bit more.
Right.
And so why did that happen? Because I didn't have my handy-dandy list at that point in my career. I didn't have the prioritized things that we absolutely had to be working on. And so because I wasn't seeing a slapper on the offensive side all the time, I kind of let it slide out of my mind a little bit on the defensive side.
They're going to be like us and hit the ball. Yeah.
Now, the good news for me was we had a really good pitcher. So it didn't kill us that we weren't great at the slap defense, because even though we messed up a couple of plays, she got enough strikeouts in some situations that it kept, kind of covered up for the fact that we weren't that ready. But I can remember absolutely having to apologize to our team after that first game about, I just totally dropped the ball. I totally screwed this up. I did not build enough of this into our practice schedule. We're going to fix it this week. We're going to get good at this again. And I really had to fall on the sword of humiliation of missing something that was really fundamental that should have never been missed. But because, as you said, walking down the aisle at Home Depot, I walked right.
All. Yeah, I know I had it all.
I walked right by the bin that said "Do slap defense, dummy."
Right.
I walked right by it. I didn't even recognize it. Didn't even notice it. It's like, and all of a sudden, I'm back at the house trying to put the project together, and I don't have any of those slap defense parts.
Right.
So again, the idea of keeping track of it and prioritizing it is what we really wanted to talk about today. Coaches, I don't care how long you've been doing this. If you don't have a list, you will forget something. And having to stand in front of your team and admit that the reason you weren't prepared for something is because you missed it, because you slipped up as a coach, is not a place that we want to be spending a whole lot of our time, because it's not a great thing for your credibility. It's not a great thing for your confidence. Fortunately for us, we were still able to play well enough to win that game, and I didn't have to pay the ultimate price, but I probably deserved to. I probably deserved, for the way I had not prepared my team, to have them slapping all like crazy and run ruling us because we couldn't make any of the plays.
Well, and Tori, to begin the creation of a list is probably the toughest, but once you've got it, you've got all the pieces right there.
Well, and right now heading into the holidays, we all have kind of a little bit of a break, and obviously I want our coaches to spend time with their families and all that kind of stuff. But when your mind starts shifting gears back to thinking, hey, in 6 weeks we're going to start practicing again. Hey, in 8 weeks we're going to start playing again. Now's the time to start going, through your memory, start to think about all those things, start making that list, and start to, to create the master list. Put it on your computer, use the different size fonts. Think of the 5 or 6 or 8 things that are the most important, and those should be gigantic at the top of the list. And then that way, hopefully it'll remind you to keep working on them. And then, work your way through it. And again, prioritizing what's most important. If you're bad at bunt coverage, but you're really good at running trick plays that come up once a season, we might have prioritized the wrong things. So we just want to make sure that we use that list and use our planning time now to have a really effective list that we're going to use to make our teams be really prepared.
Have good winter training and a great spring season.
All right, so that's going to wrap up number 217. Please make sure you support Anderson Bat and go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. Become a patron if you can. Again, thank you very much, Dalton Bragg, for becoming our newest patron. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, or suggestions, reach out to us at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. And make sure you go to the fastpitchprep.com website, order your Square Cuts training discs there. You also have access to the YouTube channel and the blog posts, tons and tons of information. We would certainly love for you to take advantage of that. So for Coach Don McKinley and our producer, Stan Lewis, this is Coach Tori saying thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.